Hello there and welcome to Breakfast with Mark Daniels for Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. Weather for the rest of the work week, we are in the clouds all the way through Friday. With temperatures starting out as cold as 40 today, we'll reach around 50 degrees by the time we hit Friday. Nighttime lows about 40. Best chance of rain looks like it comes Thursday and Friday. So the first thing I want to do today is to thank you for your support and for listening. I received an email this morning from Buzzsprout.com. That's the site that hosts Breakfast with Mark Daniels. And the email said, "Congratulations, you now have over 10,000 plays to Breakfast with Mark Daniels." And that doesn't include all the plays we received on YouTube or Instagram. Bottom line is, I'm really happy that you're there, and I can't thank you enough for helping me continue to build Breakfast with Mark Daniels. Recapping from yesterday, those retro gadgets. Renee says, well, we do have a VCR in the den, along with a DVD player. We don't have a rotary phone, thank God, but we still have a wall phone in the kitchen, a landline, and the cord is attached. And although she doesn't have the specific radio featured in the picture we posted on Breakfast with Mark Daniels, she does own a boombox that she thinks is circa 2006. Jerry says, as far as retro gadgets are concerned, my parents still have a rotary phone. Ann says she has too many of those gadgets. Bob says all of those gadgets are in our phones. And Phil says, I have several of those retro gadgets. But we somehow just like our retro, don't we? Like I might have mentioned before, I have a retro calendar on my fridge that I write stuff in. Everybody knows in my house that if it's not on the fridge calendar, it's not happening. I don't think I've once used a Microsoft Outlook calendar, although I've been invited to go to certain things through that calendar app, but I don't know how to send an invitation. Although I'm sure if I Googled it, I'd figure it out. But I don't want to. Today is National Weather Person's Day. It's a day to recognize your favorite meteorologist, or some of them aren't really meteorologists. They just tell you the weather. They're TV or radio personalities that greet you each day and help you get ready for your day by telling you what the weather's going to be like. And the weather person is always someone that you've been able to connect to, a lot more than the newscasters, the people telling you the bad news of the world. Even if the weather person told you there was a blizzard coming, somehow they were there to comfort you and help you through it. Some of my favorite meteorologists include Jim Cantore on the Weather Channel. This is a guy that lives and breathes weather, and he's so credible that you can't help but watch and listen to every syllable that he says. He's the guy that told us all about what thunder snow is. And there's a clip of him while he's outside covering, I believe it was a blizzard, when lightning, thunder, and pounding snow all came at the same time.
Oh, yes! 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 We got it, baby! We got it! We got it! Woo! Woo! We got it! And there's another one. You gotta be kidding me. You can have your $500 million jackpot in Powerball or whatever the heck it was, but I'll take this, baby. Four lightning strikes, 4 episodes of Thunder Snow.
Jim Cantore, he is weather, but I'll take the Powerball jackpot. Thank you. Other meteorologists not quite as passionate as Jim include Kelly Cass, also on the Weather Channel. Of course, there's the lovable Al Roker. Janice Huff, she's on NBC. Heather Tesh, also on the Weather Channel. Sam Champion was on ABC. He's been all over the place. And Dr. Frank Field. Comedian Louis Black and his take on the weather and the weather person.
Weather's been nuts for a long time, and nobody seems to care about it. 10 years ago, I was in Boston, Massachusetts, and in 4 days, I experienced 5 seasons. It was 30, it was 60, it was 90, then it was 12. And then the last day, there was thunder, lightning, and snow together. I was supposed to work that night. I said, I'm not coming in. I'm scared to death. Because I know what the next season's going to be. Locusts. And there will come a time, mark my words, where there will be a season where just great big giant frogs fall from the sky. You'll wake up one morning and your weatherman will be on TV standing in a field and frogs will be bouncing off his head. He'll be going, giant frogs, what can I say? Back to you.
And now other things that are notable on this day include it is National Nutella Day. I don't even know if I'm saying it right because I really don't care because I don't like it, and I think I'm the only person on the planet that doesn't like Nutella. Or is it Nutella? I don't know. The first Don't Walk signs were installed in New York City on this date in 1952. I mean, the signs do make sense, and they still use them today, obviously, but we needed a sign to help curtail the number of traffic deaths because people were walking out in busy intersections in New York City and elsewhere. And finally on this date, Reader's Digest was first published today in 1922. And I thought, Reader's Digest? Isn't that what I used to pick up and start to read when I was waiting for my dental appointment? I haven't seen a Reader's Digest in years. Do they still publish it? And the answer is absolutely yes. It has a circulation of over 10 million copies in the United States and is believed to be the best-selling consumer magazine in the country. So I went on readersdigest.com. And the first thing that popped up was an article about 10 things that you should not keep in your home. I won't go through all of them, but I can tell you it did grab my attention. For instance, rocking chairs. It has something to do with ghosts. Broken clocks, because that could be a bad omen. Eesh. Cacti, because they're magnets, they say, for bad vibes. An unmade bed. And it says here on readersdigest.com, well, that this was probably concocted by frustrated parents trying to get their kids to make their beds, but it warns you not making your bed or even being interrupted while making your bed can doom you to a sleepless night. There are several other things, including taxidermy, like moose heads, dead plants, an outdated calendar. You can go on readersdigest.com and read if you like. And a couple of tidbits I saw on the Daily News that caught my eye today. First of all, it took Jennifer Lopez 10 hours, or her team 10 hours, to apply the makeup that she had on during the Super Bowl halftime show. 10 hours of makeup. And I thought my wife took a long time to put on her makeup before we went out to dinner or out with a friend. And if you're looking for a creative Valentine's gift, this might work. You can now buy a version of Shakira's Super Bowl 2020 outfit for $4,000. DailyNews.com, they've got all the details. Open your wallet wide. And the last thing I wanted to cover today was, again, generated from an email I received this morning. Yeah, it's been a pretty busy day with email. The email came from Jacobs Media Strategies. And I certainly wouldn't expect you to know who they are because it's an industry consulting firm. Jacobs Media Strategies provides research and consulting expertise to leading radio and television broadcasters. This was written by Fred Jacobs himself. He's the CEO, and his article is titled, "Have Layoffs Done Collateral Damage to Radio?" In the last quarter of 2019 and the first quarter of 2020, radio layoffs have been in the headlines frequently. He goes on to say that the radio industry has sadly come together on the issue of downsizing, terminations, layoffs, reductions in force, dislocations, whatever that is. Actually, what that is a company that doesn't want to use the term layoff, fired. Radio, like every other industry, has been trying to balance growth and sustainability. A large media outlet, probably the biggest in the world, recently fired a lot of people. More than 1,000 people and their families have been impacted by this latest round of cuts. And with all these cuts, there's been a lot of bad PR for radio, something it definitely doesn't need right now, especially with all the new digital competition. Radio prides itself on good deeds during times of disaster, as well as fundraising and charitable pursuits. Negative coverage of radio broadcasting at the beginning of this year is not just unfortunate, it's disturbing and troublesome. Mr. Jacobs goes on to say that if you Google radio layoffs, you'll see about 150,000 plus results. When you turn on your radio, they want you to believe that everything is peachy, coming up roses. It's another sunny day. But it's not. There's plenty of trouble in paradise. Recently, there have been blaring headlines in The Washington Post, Rolling Stone, Daily Voice, Newsday, and many others, all focused on how many people have been laid off, let go, or terminated by a certain radio station or radio company. Mr. Jacobs used a P.T. Barnum quote, "There's no such thing as bad publicity." Unfortunately for radio, that's a myth, because news travels faster than ever before, thanks in part to the internet and social media. Look, radio is about making money. It's a business. They're not there to play your favorite Taylor Swift song. And radio, like any other industry, has to take a look at itself in the mirror every now and then and make the decision that it's time to change things up. But when it came to all these firings and layoffs and terminations, people are questioning whether or not radio is going about it in the right way. Everyone in a radio station is important. These are the gears that make the machine run, whether you're on the air, production, doing sales, or administrative. And at the same time, they're all expendable, replaceable by somebody who might demand a lower salary, or by just eliminating the position. A good portion of people who've lost their radio jobs over the last few weeks have been on-air people. On-air people are radio's front line. They're the people who represent the station. They're the people that listeners identify with. They're people, not just a line on an Excel budget spreadsheet, who wake you up every morning, who tell you the news, traffic, info, tell you about new music, local events, and send us off to bed each night. When they disappear from the air, the audience knows right away. They're the people who are often the faces of their radio stations. And it leaves listeners with a void. Where's my friend? Where's the person I got to know all these years? And oftentimes, radio stations will replace a team, an announcer, a newscaster, a weather person, with somebody that nobody knows. It would be like going to a Yankee game and seeing all unfamiliar players around the bases. Listen, if an announcer is not pulling his or her weight in the company, then they really don't have any right to be part of that company. However, if they are doing so, and the company is just looking to downsize or to cut costs, is it the right place to start? The front line? Should they be the first to go? Just to cut cost? The general consensus of Mr. Jacobs' article is that radio executives should be a lot more creative when it comes to downsizing or restructuring. Who's really suffering here? When it comes down to it, not only is the announcer or the team suffering, it's the entire radio listening audience. And anyone can tell you, listeners matter. Listeners are the people that drive ratings. Listeners are the people that go and frequent the advertisers they hear on the air. Listeners will sit through an endless number of commercials just to hear some entertainment from their favorite announcer. And listeners are angry. And if listeners are angry, they're not coming back. In a day and age when competition between terrestrial radio and satellite radio and streaming subscription radio services is at its peak, radio should be paying attention to these factors. The one thing radio has that subscription and satellite services don't offer is local announcers. They're familiar with the community. They know what makes their listeners tick. If radio doesn't pay more attention to their listeners, it will, in fact, become a thing of the past. Because without them, it's entirely useless. That'll do it for this episode of Breakfast with Mark Daniels. Thank you for listening. And thanks for putting us over 10,000 plays today. Breakfast with Mark Daniels is available on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Alexa, and Buzzsprout.com. Have a great Wednesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Breakfast with Mark Daniels.